Welcome to another Workflow Wednesday. And yes, this is at a different time. I delayed because I get to have two great people join me in this conversation to talk about employee experience and the word happiness. And so let me unpin my video and introduce you guys. Where's my remove pin? There we go. Dan Turchin, you popped up on the screen. Say hello.
Troy, Marko, good to be here. Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleReign, the AI-first system of intelligence for HR and IT employee service, here to talk about my favorite topic in the whole world, employee experience.
Nice. Marko, thanks for joining Dan and I. A little intro from you.
Troy, good to be here. Good to see you, Dan, again. We meet weekly nowadays. My name is Marko Ruusinen, country manager for HappySignals. We are a platform for employee experience in IT. So good to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And yeah, both HappySignals and PeopleReign are part of the broader Thirdera family. And so we're excited to bring you guys together and part of being that better together story. And the reason that I invited you on to Now It's Right today is really pick a little bit further back at employee experience. And Dan and I talked about it a little bit further on our webinar that we had a couple of weeks back, that the term happiness kept coming up. I'm like, oh, I need Dan and Marko on. And so happiness, let me drop that kind of, that topic in there. Why is that such an important thing for organization to be considering, the happiness of their employees or customers?
Troy, I can start. We went out and asked 250 CIOs, what are you doing to combat what's been labeled the Great Resignation? The rate of employees quitting in the United States spiked 10x in the fourth quarter of 2021. So something's happening.
Mind-blowing. Yeah.
Absolutely mind-blowing. So we wanted to know what's going on, specifically as advocates for better employee experiences. Like, we're not doing something right. And when we went out and asked 250 CIOs, it became pretty clear. So what they told us is that of the top 7 reasons that employees cite for leaving organizations, for quitting, 0 of the top 7 have to do with compensation. 7 of the top 7 have to do what I would casually group into the category of employee happiness or employee satisfaction. It's things like, you know what? I want to feel like my values are aligned with my organization. I want to feel like my time is valued. I want to feel respected. I want to feel trusted. I don't want to have to wait for routine requests or feel like, I'm a second-class citizen because I have a question about, needing to upgrade, the antivirus software on my laptop. Easy requests, when delivered in a way that creates a lot of friction, lead to the kind of frustration that ultimately leads to employees seeking higher ground. And so when we think about, the real vision, the real mission behind delivering an AI-first exceptional employee experience that automates away the drudgery from work, we think squarely about addressing those top 7 reasons and keeping key employees at companies and really, doing our little piece of work to be able to eliminate this trend of the Great Recession, the Great Resignation.
Yeah, the Great Resignation, Great Revolt. It's a huge change. Thanks for that, Dan. Marko, coming from the organization that you represent, HappySignals, it's almost like, could we tee that up any better for you to talk about why even more so now is happiness so important for IT organizations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'll share a few slides, just give a thought. So I have one brief example here. I think this is the one typical example, like how IT has traditionally performed, and especially pre-COVID, this was very clear situation. Now,
very linear.
And today we are working from home. It's no more that the colleague is physically next to us. The manager is probably sitting, in a 200 kilometers away. So it turns into the situation that people will be at the center. They are the best sensors also happen, like telling that what's happening at the moment. They know it all the time. And if you think about traditional IT, we have been great at measuring and understanding the typical KPIs, like what's our resolution time for an incident. But then how was the end user actually? Were they happy about it, and what happened? So we also collect a similar kind of a data from our customers. So this is currently millions of end users who are in the center and giving feedback like, hey, what are the services, and how happy they are with those services. So you see, for example, whenever they are collaborating with IT and the support services, those are typically the ones that where there is a human on the other end. And people are relatively happy with those services. And then there's a lot of other areas. Portal one example, which has been improving, but there is still a lot of room to improve further. And these kind of different solutions to like dance to improve the self-service when people want that self-service. So that's also something good to understand, that there are people who want the self-service, and then there is the people who prefer the human touch. So I think those are the kind of a few insights, like how and why it's turning within IT also in this direction. So many customer facing organizations are already there, but within IT this is kind of a new thing.
Right. It's interesting, that last graph that you showed where, portal and mobile are often, or have been, really cumbersome to use. I think it's an area that, we together, if we look at Thirdera and look at Thirdera Digital, as well as where we see ServiceNow really investing, is those areas of
Yep.
How do we change that experience? And then Dan, as we kind of couple in the system of intelligence on top of it, that can span languages, right? It's really shoring up and continuing that human interaction where you saw the high scores in there, but looking around that wheel and seeing where there's huge negative to be able to change it and turn it around. It's exciting to be part of that. You were both at an HDI conference recently. You want to talk a little bit about some of the ahas that came out of that conference, some of that speaking session that you guys are involved in?
Certainly, yeah. We both gave lightning talks to I think it was 3 or 4 different HDI chapters that got together in a virtual meetup, which was fantastic because I've been in and around HDI for more than 20 years, and the organization kind of went dark when we canceled all the live events. So it felt really good to get 3 or 4 chapters together again. It's a vibrant community, a community that really embraces the kinds of things that Marko and I are talking about in terms of delivering better employee experiences. And the key takeaway for me was listening to some of the members talk about ways that they've taken some of the innovative approaches to better employee experiences from our days in the office and tried to migrate those to, similarly innovative approaches to supporting employees working from home. One example is some of the most progressive employers back kind of pre-2020 had deployed things like IT vending machines in office locations. So, if you need to replace your mouse or your keyboard or, get a new headset, like that's just a quality of life issue. You don't need to go into a request portal and wait 3 days and have CDW, procure it and go through SAP. Like that's insanity, right? So just walk up to the kiosk. We trust you. Like it's like a $10, item, but some of that went away. So what they're doing is shifting to technologies that continue to make the employee feel like they're the center of the organization's universe, and doing things like, providing virtual agents that are multilingual and providing, live interactive support 24/7. So everybody feels like, it may not be a mouse that you get from the IT vending machine, but if all of a sudden your Wi-Fi goes down in your home office, and you're hosed and you're based 12 hours away from the HQ, well, what do you do? Well, things like a virtual agent, things like better knowledge content, things like automated recommendations based on looking at trending issues, applying some of the principles of AI and machine learning turns out can replicate that kind of high touch, white glove treatment that employees come to expect. That was what I really, I was inspired hearing some of these stories from the HDI community.
Yeah,
It's like
that was I
reality.
mean, yeah. I think it was a great, to meet people even virtually, and I think well, COVID obviously changed a lot, and I think many were thinking like already, hey, hey, how do we do and move forward from here? And the thing is that when the people are there and they have this knowledge, they are the as said best sensors to tell to IT department, to HR, that hey, what do we need? Like, how am I feeling now? What's the causing frustration? And there it comes to the point that you need to understand. Not only you can't ask once a year, hey, what do you need? Like, what should we improve? It needs to be kind of a continuous process to understand. Like, and when you implement those changes, like for example, vending machines, let's say that's an issue. Okay, you implement vending machines and get that part working at the headquarters. What next? I mean, it's not that you should be be satisfied. Okay, hey, this is it. It's a continuous process. Okay, we fixed that part, and then what's next? Maybe there is missing some items that they should be there. And once you have this kind of a continuous, understanding what's happening, you can improve again. So I think that's also one mindset shift. What's happening that allows to add new things, and people change. I mean, once you have been, working for 1 year already for a company, my needs oftentimes are very different than when I started. Maybe I get even more technology savvy. I'm more open to start using like self-service tools, for example, when I first started, for example. So to understand that shift is very fundamental.
I think some of that comes from they're having some doubt about whether the self-serve will work. Right, you do it a couple of times, you realize, oh, this virtual agent, this AI system can respond in a way that it's helpful. That I don't just sit there going, operator, human being, representative. That I think the systems that you guys are both helping Thirdera implement with our clients is adding that intelligence. So there is, with PeopleReign, Dan, with your solution, that it really meets humans where they're at. And Marko, with your system, be able to get that signaling back to see how did that work? Did it really meet your needs or not?
To your point, a few years ago when we started the company, our expectations as consumers were a lot different. Well, today, if we have a question related to our credit card, our bank balance, we need to update our flight information. The last thing in the world we want to do is wait on hold for live agent, because most of the time the live agent's just going to redirect us back to a mobile app or a web portal or something like that. When we're, for example, shopping on Amazon or finding a movie to watch on Netflix, like we actually kind of like the fact that there's some intelligent recommendations, and the system just kind of gets to know us. And so the corollary to that is we come into work, and before a system, whether it's HappySignals or an intelligent system like PeopleReign, like we're back in the Stone Ages. And so now, like, it's less tolerable to have IT systems that are antiquated at work, when in our personal lives, we're getting really comfortable with smart technology. So the most progressive organizations are already deploying smart technologies to personalize or humanize the employee experience. But soon, in the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to be just as commonplace for you to expect that, concierge service from IT and HR, just like we've come to expect it in our personal lives.
For us. Yeah. That leads me kind of the next topic that I wanted to touch in the time that we have left is we've seen X used in a number of different places as a variable, but we've seen X used in acronyms for things like user interface, user experience, UI, UX. We've seen, customer experience, CX, show up as a significant thing, DX as design experience, right? There's a lot of things where it shows up. But one of the things that I'd like you guys both to talk in is this concept of ITXM, where X is not a variable for all the different things we can do with IT, insert the management. Tell me about IT experience management.
I have one again, a brief slide. Maybe I could share my screen here. This is lots of data on one slide, but I think this is relevant. So let me share. So the way we see IT, X and experience is that it's a little bit similar kind of a framework what ITIL was, how it was introduced to IT service management, and there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into details. There's free training available if anyone is interested. So please take a closer look. But the thinking is that when we put people to the center, like the end users in the center, we need to understand, how they feel, where they are today. And once we have that information, we need to share that information so that everybody, not only end users, but all the stakeholders understand where we are. We align behind the common goal, being happiness, being productivity. And once we have that data, we understand that, hey, it's based on data that we need to improve our portal services. People are not happy, for example, on that part. We know that we improve and they're asking for it. And once we improve those services, well, the end users, they will be more happy because that was something that they asked for. And once we again measure, so it will become this kind of a positive wheel and starts promoting itself actually. So important piece there.
Thanks, Marko. Dan,
We go on a little history tour of the history of ITSM. Rewind the clock about 25 years, and ITSM, service management, came about as this insight within IT that we could essentially run IT, run the service organization like we run the business. Right. Their SLAs and their workflows and their roles. And that led to the introduction of the term ESM, or Enterprise Service Management, because all the other departments saw IT behaving like the business and said, well, we want that too. And so we extended IT workflows to any organization in the business. And then as we started to introduce kind of automation for routine tasks, we said, oh, you could actually have a smart version of ITSM if you could automate an approval or a request process or something like that. Right. And then along came ITOM, IT Operations Management, in the last decade. And we said, well, gosh, you could deliver much better service if your services were infrastructure aware. But even at that point, the automation was deterministic. You basically had to know what workflow to script. And right. the best we could do was to listen for the signals from the infrastructure to try to figure out what kind of downstream impact there might be on a user. Well, now when we talk about, ITXM, or the future of the employee experience, now we can go a step beyond, because we finally have the capabilities to be able to automate non-deterministic workflows. That's the magic of AI and machine learning. Even when we don't know what the right thing to do is, we can use patterns in the historical data to have these intelligent automated conversations, whether it's via NLP, natural language processing, or smart recommendations for live agents. But all of a sudden, this vision that we had 25 years ago for automating the business, for internal service providers, now we can extend to what, at least the PeopleReign we refer to as the intelligent enterprise, where when AI is kind of ambient across the enterprise, we can actually predict, prevent, diagnose, resolve issues that might impact employees before any service has been degraded. That's always been the holy grail of providing the best customer experience. And it's really gratifying, having lived through some times when we always wanted to promise this, but we couldn't deliver it. Well, the technology is finally available that we can do it the right way. And that's what really makes me so optimistic about the kind of employee experience that we're capable of delivering in the years ahead.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example. ITIL started to bring the promise that, okay, we will run, IT like business. But I think what oftentimes happened is that, okay, IT was run like a business in a sense that, okay, you had the KPIs that, okay, hey, we need the internal, performance metrics that, okay, we will, solve these issues within an SLA. and then we have a certain budget, and then we have a cost per incident, and we know the cost of second level incident, and we have all that data. But I think what experience management is bringing to the picture is that long forgotten the end user. Like, let's say a good example, again, one quick share, not our slide, but this is from our friend from MetricNet, just the kind of the cost of the internal cost of incidents. And if you think about the service desk ticket on the first level, it's based on this data, $22 per incident. But at the same time, per incident, our benchmark data says that end users lose 3 hours of their time per incident. And 3 hours, $50 per hour, that's $150. So you can easily make a business case like, hey, instead we should maybe invest within IT. Maybe instead we should have intelligence AI tools that would reduce the lost work time of the end user, where we have $150 to save versus then $22, for example, per ticket. And I'm saying, of course, that you should not think about, also maybe internally there are things that you can improve, but at least understand that the end user is losing a lot of time, and the organization as such. So sometimes I think when IT is run as a business, we have forgotten actually the paying customer or the consuming customer. So even though it's an internal service unit, but who's the yeah.
That's a good point, Marko.
I think that the thing I was going to add is the thing that I like about that, and it kind of scales, right? You talk about the cost of an incident, and you start looking at the opportunity cost for the employees. Well, mix in the Great Resignation and Great Revolt, the cost of losing an employee, because Dan, to your point, one of those 7 factors drove them out of the organization, is we address some of that with happiness. What you're doing is you're really reducing increasing retention, reducing that cost of having to find, hire, onboard, train, and engage a new employee. That cost to the organization is significant. And so it's ratcheting levels of value, I guess you could say, looking at ITXM.
It costs twice as much to hire a new employee as it does to retain an existing one.
Indeed. And in many cases, if you
in addition to the impact on the culture. I'm sorry, Troy.
Well, I was going to say, if you can find them, I mean, that's one of the things I'm hearing from lots of different clients,
exactly,
whether it's in the ServiceNow space or otherwise.
Yeah.
Finding those employees is a true challenge, and so retaining them is even more important, more expensive to find another one.
Very true. Very true.
We're coming towards the end of our time. One of the things that I'd like you guys both to sound off on is, we talked about happiness. We talked about different ways we can bring in a system of intelligence. We talked about ways we can really look at signaling to understand happiness and where we can find and grow and improve. And, I talk about Thirdera a lot, so we don't need to focus so much on our work, but together we bring these solutions. What's a good next step? If you think about leaders that were watching some of this content, they're wrestling with employee experience and how do I change retention? How do I reduce opportunity costs for people that need help from IT or HR? And then how do I reduce cost of sales? What's kind of that next step from both of your organizations that people should reach out, and what's that journey look like for them?
I'd say, ironically, you're speaking to 2 technology vendors, but I'm going to lead out and say, don't make it a technology problem. These are people problems. The organizations that are most successful are the ones that put the employee at the center of the organization's universe. And if we always think about how to extract friction between the employee and their employer, get all the things that they hate doing out of the way, give them more time to be the best version of themselves at work, that's when we can start to be really innovative. And the ways to deploy some of these modern technologies like Marko and I have been talking about, it's actually pretty easy. Once you reorient your culture around placing the value on the employee experience, that's the number one coaching I have to CXOs or any organization looking to deliver better end customer experiences, is to start with your employees and figure out what you can do to deliver a better employee experience.
I like that, Dan. One of the things that I think all of us have heard is we have to focus on people, process, and technology. And so oftentimes we want to focus on technology. Well, I've caught myself for years, yeah, gray hair, I know, saying, shh, technology is easy. Because in many places, even though it's complex engineering our teams do, and it's innovative and it takes brilliance to come in and do that, the best technology is going to fail if we don't have the process and the people in place. And so completely agree. Marko, your thoughts?
So following the same thinking, people must be in the center. I think coming from the experience management, and if that's kind of the thinking that humans are there at the center, I think the first thing is that you need to start understanding them. And how to do that, how do you get that feedback? We can help. Talk with Troy, right? There's a solution that can help you get this understanding, but it's a journey, right? So and it's ultimately about the people. So it will be a culture journey, culture change, culture shift. So there's a lots of into it. But the first step should be clear, is to get the understanding of the users, end users, customers, many names, but the same, it's all about people. So
I love people. Cool. With that, I'm going to close this up. Again, thank you for joining us on a Workflow Wednesday. Dan, Marko, thank you for joining me in this adventure, and thank you for being part of the Thirdera broader family, where we look to really help people get more out of the ServiceNow platform. Thanks so much, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thanks, Troy.
Bye, Marko.
Bye, Dan.